Young. Christopher Gibbon. Candy Thomas. And Safari Thompson. Jane Watson. Chevelle Taylor. Royale Gordon. Javon Campbell. Janoy McIntosh. Javari Lamont. Karan Salman. And Denika Romo. Until the other debate, we are all here? No. Let us give them again a round of applause. Want us to please also welcome our two judges this afternoon, Mrs. Xavier Dobson and Mrs. Yanni Donald. Don't we know that they will have a very difficult task today? To judge the best of the best. May you be seated. Now, each speaker will have 6 minutes to present his or her stance and will be allotted 2 minutes to deliver their rebuttal. So the first face-off this afternoon will be the affirmative for Colleen Young of the Sports Massage and Fitness 2A, and the opposition against Christopher Gibbons of Port City to debate the move. The view that tertiary education is the path to success is a facade. Let us have them.
A pleasant good afternoon to my audience, judges, competitors, and fellow opponents. My mood for today is the view that tertiary education is the path to success is a facade. According to the College Dictionary, facade is an appearance which is false and gives an impression about something, and from the Oxford Dictionary, success is accomplishment of an aim or purpose. Tertiary education is the path to the accomplishment of an aim or purpose which is just an appearance that is the false and wrong impression about something, and I completely agree. How many people do you know have a degree and can't get a job? And how many people do you know didn't even see the face of college and is living the best life? Henry Ford, the founder of Ford Motor Company, didn't even attend school. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg didn't even complete college, but they are some of the richest people alive. It is quite evident that you don't need to go to college to become successful. College is not affordable. Imagine taking out a loan and go to college for 2 to 4 years just to be jobless with no source of income to help pay off your debt. This leads to my next point. People having a degree and can't get a job, especially in their field of study. Some people with a degree who are working are not working in their field of study. I have come across multiple people who have completed college just to work at a call center. I deem those people as lucky because there are multiplicity of people with degrees and unemployed. I conduct an interview at the Kingston Bookshop, and Quality Simpson said, I have a degree in marketing, but I am working as an admin assistant. This just proves my point. She may not be able to buy the latest car, but she can be there for her family, and that's an accomplishment. So therefore, she's successful. My mother doesn't have a degree and she's a perfectly able. She's able to send me to school and maintain and help the living, and for that she's successful. And yes, I did say successful. Success is simply getting a goal and achieving. And one of their goals is to be able to support their family, which is indeed achieving. Washington Post said 27% of college students find work in their field of study. And so what happens to the other 73? Either jobless or working in a field they didn't even study for. The ones who are jobless, what are they doing now? And this question leads me to my next point. Let's talk about stealing or even scamming. I know when you hear this about someone, the first thing that will come to your mind is lazy, worthless, uneducated, or why didn't they get a job? Why don't they get a job and stop trying to work for people and stop trying to save people hard-working money? I am not justifying their actions, but have you stopped to think why some of them do this? I might not have hard evidence to back up this, but maybe it was their last resort. Just think about it. They finish college and they try until they lose hope. Going home to nothing and having no source of income. They spot someone putting money in their bag and start thinking, oh, they have more, they're not next. They feel it. It works out for some of them, so they continue this crucial act. I am not talking about people who have choices but decided to feed off others. Look, there are many opportunities out there, and you don't need to go to college to become successful. I believe that experience and skills hold more weight than a piece of paper saying that you have studied theory about how things work. Have we heard of people attending their first day at a new job just to be told, forget everything you learned, we will show you how to do the job? I must admit, it may be difficult to work in a professional field without a degree, but it isn't impossible. I, I believe it is very important to thoroughly research your field in which you wish to pursue, and so you will know you may or may not need a degree to pursue. You may not need a degree to become successful. For example, if you're interested in becoming a chef, all you need to do is go to her and become a certified chef. My sister went to her and she now owns her own business, which she is successful for, so she is successful. You might not like to hear this, but it's the truth. Believe it or not, this time around it's just links. Links run the place. You could have a degree, experience, etc. But if there is no one put in a good word for you, your chances are low. I thank you.
And we will now have our second.
evening, judges. Good evening, lovely audience. Now, as my opponent would have mentioned that her definition of success, and I want to add that success without fulfillment is absolutely considered as a sin. I do agree that you do not need a degree to become successful, but the mind-blowing reasoning on success is absolutely something to think of. Now, before I jump into my argument, I want to raise this quote. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will believe its whole life, believing that it is stupid, mentioned by Albert Einstein. Now, my first point I would be raising is that misbelief of tertiary education is a ticket to the future. Now let's talk about the history of schools for a moment. Now in fact, school system was created and designed to train people who were working in the factories. Now which explains why we're seated in straight rows, which explains why we sit still, which explains why we have to raise our hands to even ask questions, which explains why we get short breaks to eat, and which explains why we have 8 hours a day to actually get a grade A, and which in that time was equivocal to a grade A meet. Now, what changed from now and then? I then pose the question, my opponent, does tertiary education care for our future? No, the future of tomorrow is absolutely automation. The future of tomorrow is artificial intelligence. The future of tomorrow is robotics. The future of tomorrow is cryptocurrency. Now, what are we being taught today that is absolutely significant for tomorrow's day and age? Absolutely nothing. We are in a classroom, and our main point of interest for the future is our creativity and our innovativeness. Now, mind you, my colleagues, that our innovativeness is being oftentimes ridiculed by this one-size-fits-all shenanigans. We are all being taught how to learn in one fashion, and we're absolutely uniquely different beings. I then jump on to my second point, which is tertiary education is a one-time of a life experience. Now, of course, this promotes enduring friendships. I would also explore the fact that tertiary education pretty much creates the opportunities for one to network, which fosters in your personal branding. Now, my colleagues, let's in fact talk to the Donny and let's talk to the chopper them for a second. Let me remind you that the world of work cares zero about your 4.0 GPO. The A students, in fact, are the ones that work for the B students. The C students are in fact the ones that have the jobs, and the D students are the ones that in fact own the buildings. And then I would say the opportunity to be in the tertiary space helps you to identify your skills and talents. Now my last point is then tertiary education as well increases in students' debt. Now, according to Scholarship Jamaica, an article done by R.D. Miller, October 2020 reads, evidence shows that student debt jeopardizes the financial wealth of many households and the economy in the long run, not only in the Caribbean but in other countries. Now, this debt burden has also contributed to the black-white wealth gap across the wealth distribution. Other studies have shown that about 2 in 5 households now owe student debt loans, and now this number is absolutely increasing. I further will add, student debt has surpassed 1 trillion in the US, and the delinquency rate to over 50%. Now these students are also being inflicted by the suicidal rate that is now increasing over the decade. Now noted, this also in fact affect individuals within the age group, age 20 to 31. Now, understanding the fact that student loans is extremely important. We as a nation, we as students, we as institutions should also enforce students to garner support from scholarships, grants, and other financial aids to help them to change the detriments of student debt that we currently face. I thank you.
Now that the two arguments are presented, I will now give each participant 2 minutes to do their rebuttal. Or affirmative. Yes. Affirmative. No. Sorry. So each speaker has the opportunity to use a nugget that is he or she may call or invite someone from the audience to assist you with the rebuttal. So your 2 minutes is up. So I will have the rebuttal now from the affirmative. My opponent stated that tertiary education is a care for our future. Yes, it's a care for doctors, nurses, pediatricians, all those science they have to go to college. But what if I want to become a hairdresser? Do I need to spend millions of dollars just to become a hairdresser? No. He said it's a once in a lifetime experience. So I can spend millions of dollars just to get a college experience and then I don't have the money, I don't get a job, and I still cannot pay off the debt. Yes, come together to pay off a scholarship. What about before the scholarship? When parents are not financially stable to for students to pay for CXC to get their CA profile, to get their ones and twos, to apply for a scholarship. What about that? I don't need to go to college to execute my creativity and innovation that I already have. If I know I can do here well, why did I need to pay money to tell me what I already know? That's not necessary at all. The 200,000 that I could use to go to college, I could use that to invest in a business and possibly teach people what I know already and become successful without even going to college. All I need is probably Wi-Fi. If I want to become an entrepreneur, all I need is Wi-Fi. If I want to start a little business, research how much for the base, how much for the bottle, and that's about it. And I start putting about $100,000, and that's just it. So college is not necessary, depending on what you want to pursue in the future.
So we will have now our opposition, Principal Gibbon, or his rebuttal.
Okay, so as my opponent would just highlighted that I mentioned that tertiary education is a one-time experience of a lifetime. Of course, it absolutely is, but I do absolutely do not agree the fact that yes, we absolutely need the tertiary education to experience success. No, let's talk about some college dropouts. No, we have Michael Dell. As I am looking here, I am sure that I'm actually seeing persons with a Dell computer. Now that was created by someone who actually charted their path into the system, and right before graduation, he chose to remove himself from the tertiary system. Steve Jobs, a lot of us here, we use Apple devices, iPhones, MacBooks, and of course, Steve Jobs is one of them who actually dropped out of college. Bill Gates, the wealthiest man alive, in fact, dropped out of college. And John Quan, the man who created WhatsApp for everyday interaction in today's 21st century. Now, my opponent, tertiary education is absolutely not something I classified as a way to success. And as I expressed of the following persons, we truly do not need tertiary education to succeed. I thank you.
I thank our first team members that face off with each other. Students, thank you. Carry arguments, I should see. We now move to our next face off. Face off number 2, affirmative for Candy Thomas. Take your away. Opposition against Isafari Thompson. Our second face-off will debate the moot. Tertiary education should be free. Remember, each person will be allotted 6 minutes to present their argument.
Hello. Good afternoon, great judges, college mates, opponents, wonderful guests, ladies and gentlemen. Tertiary education should be for free. This afternoon, I will be shedding some light on factors to why tertiary education should be for free. Then we'll bring more clarity by elaborating using points and finally concluding everything, which will allow my wonderful audience to understand why agreeing to this statement would and should be the way to go. Before Whitlam abolished university fees in 1974, he said, we believe that students merit rather than parents' wealth should decide who should benefit from the community's vast financial commitment to tertiary education. That is the 21st Prime Minister of Australia. My first point, tertiary education should be something that everyone in society is entitled to despite their backgrounds. Second point, tertiary education changes the financial upbringing of a child. And my third point, it boosts the economy. Tertiary education is the next level of education for those who complete their secondary education, which is normally conducted at universities and colleges. My opponent will try to persuade you into thinking that free tertiary education is absurd and can result in reduction of the quality of education, which would also result in students withdrawing from more classes and not trying too hard enough to go to classes because they're not paying for anything. This principle of equality is at the heart of the case for free tertiary education and operates on my three main points. First, everyone should be equally able to access tertiary education regardless of their wealth or background. Free tertiary education is the only way to ensure it. However, the prospect of a debt is the tens of thousands is a significant incentive to many unprivileged students who are also sacrificing years of lost income in order to study. Secondly, education is the most powerful equalizing force in society. A university education enables students to radically change the financial situation of their upbringing and allows a unique level of social mobility. Importantly, these benefits accrue the most to students from low socioeconomic backgrounds, those who are least likely to attend university under a paid model. Additionally and lastly, free tertiary education is particularly important in the context of the Jamaican workforce, which increasingly favors skilled tertiary educated workers, at least by getting a certificate or going to hard academy to qualify for a skill that you have acquired is also known as tertiary education, systematically locking out those who do not fit this description from good careers and well-paying jobs, which will add to building the economy of this island and worldwide. Scholarship Jamaica. The average student now graduates from college with around 4 million in student loan debt. However, the most recent data from the Council of Graduate Students states that in the US, which is similar to us in Jamaica, 1.74 million students are continuing their education with master's and PhD programs piling on even more student loan debt. Currently, graduate students, degree holders account for 40% of an over 1 trillion in total student loan debt for the country, which is insanely ridiculous. Tertiary education should be for free. Thank you.
We will now have our opposition.
Very afternoon to my opponents, the judges, the guests, and to you all. The mood of my debate is tertiary education should be free and explain. Very afternoon to my fellow opponents, the judges, the guests, and to you all. The topic of my debate is tertiary education should be free, and I'm against this motion. To explain to my audience exactly what is tertiary education, we can say that it is the third stage of learning that is done after graduating from high school or entering the workplace. Tertiary education refers to all formal post-secondary education, including public and private universities, colleges, technical training institutions, and vocational schools. An example of tertiary education is studying for a bachelor's degree at a university. From my first point of this topic, should tertiary education be free? Let's just say it pays to learn. Based on my research from the environmentalist postconscience.com, which goes to say that college is an investment, and in turn, people who want to attend colleges should pay for this opportunity. Since the person who capitalize and profit from their opportunity, this college degree afterwards, this would encourage persons to establish more value. This would encourage persons to establish more value for their money, and therefore better access for resources and information can be provided. My, my fellow audience, it's no doubt that everyone deserves to learn. Yes, but most persons who get this opportunity to attend schools for free doesn't appreciate the gifts and given the money that come from this, and this must come from somewhere or from someone's pocket. In paying for one's own education, we are able to value and understand the importance of the education system. For my second point, and continuing the topic of tertiary education, it is fair to say that people in general try their best to make every dollar count. We all know the most if all person wants the best for themselves, which means going to university and colleges would provide individuals with the best education that has to offer in a modern civilization. So my opponent, could you imagine if all these colleges and universities were to be free of charges? By doing this, everyone would apply for them easily, and after successfully finishing their studies, they would then transition next into seeking for a job. The main reason for this problem would be that there would be too many graduates to begin with. So therefore, there would be a lot of professionals such as teachers, architects, lawyers, doctors, etc. They would not find a place to work, and this would lead to a rise in unemployment and lastly a downfall in the economy. To conclude, the picture is not far from reality because even though with charges to colleges and universities, there is still a massive amount of unemployment, which is merely the fact that people are not able to work in the field of their studies. For my final point of this topic, let's keep in consideration that they praise equity before equality. These terms can be referred to the relative fairness and balances of what an individual as society should possess. To define each term, we can say that equality means that each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunity. On the other hand, equity is recognized that each person has different circumstances and allocated the exact resources of opportunity needed to research and for equal outcomes. So with this, we should say that with this being said, we all know that many students may actually not suited for colleges and universities. While going to colleges and universities was meant for a small number of people a few decades ago, now it seems to become a more mass movement to attend colleges and universities. However, there are many persons that might not actually be suited for colleges, since it does not provide them with education and learning they would want to expect. For instance, some people might be better suited Some people might be better suited and happier to work in a craftsman or handy worker jobs instead of going to colleges and universities. For the phrase equity before equality, this can be shown in the way that kids from already rich families do not need free education, since kids from rich colleges would relatively find it easy and practice to achieve this opportunity. So hence no one would longer be forced to pay for their college education. Thus, providing these children with free education, they would know to take advantage of this opportunity, and it would not be waste of resources, and it's unnecessary, especially when the fund used and the time to accumulate all that would be needed, and preparation could be allocated to assisting and with pressing concern for more concerns, for example, food and healthcare. I know it's my case.
Both arguments are presented. I will now give both debaters 2 minutes to prepare your rebuttals. And each speaker has the opportunity and before to use a nugget that is he or she may call and or invite anyone from the audience to assist. Your 2 minutes has ended. I will now call on the affirmative for your rebuttal.
As my opponent says, it pays to learn. It pays to learn, yes, by staying up and burning the lantern and studying. That is when you're going to the tertiary education. To repeat my definition of tertiary education is the next level of education for those who complete their secondary education, which is normally conducted at universities and colleges. Example, Portmore Heart Academy, which is also a college slash university. If you want to become a hairdresser, if you want to become a carpenter, any form of profession, you can attend the Portmore Heart Academy, which is also a college, which is also called a tertiary education. The government will be undertaking a review of tertiary education funding. Every year, the number of students who registered but then are unable to complete their courses is increasing. And it amounts also to waste because you start and you pay down and you can't finish. You drop out and the money is gone. He lamented. He said that the government has heard the concern regarding funding and is moving to make improvements. We know the difficulties that the students face, which is why we have been very sympathetic and active to support students who reach out to us at the University of the West Indies to ensure that they could stay in school and complete their education. They are far more valuable to society with a degree than without. The Prime Minister, the most honorable and boldest, pointed out. Examples of countries with free education and higher taxes, such as Norway and Denmark, where people living there genuinely don't mind paying that much tax as they see the societal benefit of free education. Having a tertiary education benefits not only the person but the society as well. Free education ensures that everyone, no matter their situation, gets a chance of being educated. Tertiary education should be for free.
Thanks for that rebuttal. Of course, we will now have our proposal to come and do his rebuttal.
There is no There is no issue with the interest of a person getting grants to further their education. But just imagine funding a free tertiary education for uninterested persons. How many times have you seen someone taking things for granted just because they don't know the cost of it? There is a quote that says, people don't value what they don't pay for. Why should you keep the risk of funding tertiary education for free, knowing the possibility it is not appreciated and will be such a big waste? In the end, it depends on the preference of the general public whether college should be free or not. However, an interesting alternative for free education would be to lower interest rates, and to extend the time for repaying for those loans, so that they will not have so that they will have so they will not have high so they will not have too high financial burden once they graduated from colleges. Through this measure, the ones who profit the most from the college degree would still bear the cost of further education, while they would be a more flexible person regarding the payment. Regarding this payment, their loan would be the same.
Let's give a round of applause for thank them for a job well done. We will now move to our third face off, and we invite our affirmative Zane Watson of 1A BTTE and our opposition against Cheryl Taylor of 2A BTTE. Our debaters will debate on the moot. The development of artificial intelligence is the threat of humanity. Affirmative.
Check. Check. A pleasant good afternoon, judges, my fellow students, and my worthy opponent. I'm Zay, and I must say, I am truly grateful for this opportunity to shed some light on a very interesting and one of the most highly debated topics around in the 21st century, which is whether or not the development of artificial intelligence is a threat to humanity. Now, what is artificial intelligence? Or AI, if you will? Well, according to the website TechTarget, we can define artificial intelligence as a simulation of human intelligence processed by machines. And by this definition, we can then say the simulation of human intelligence processed by machines poses a threat to humanity, which basically translates to machines thinking and behaving like us threatens our very existence. And I cannot help but be in 100% agreement with this.
We are having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Alright, so a pleasant good afternoon, judges, my fellow students, and my worthy opponent. I'm Zane Watts, and I must say I am truly grateful for this opportunity to shed some light on a very interesting and one of the most highly debated topics around in the 21st century, which is whether or not the development of artificial intelligence is a threat to humanity. Now, before I go any further, what is artificial intelligence, or AI, if you will? Well, according to the website TechTarget, we can define artificial intelligence as a simulation of human intelligence processed by machines, especially by computer systems. And by this definition, we can then say the simulation of human intelligence processed by machines poses a threat to humanity, which basically translates to machines thinking and behaving like us threatens our very existence, and I cannot help but be in total agreement with this viewpoint. Now, let me justify this.
Much like the fictional concept of a zombie apocalypse, I'm sure that over the decades there has been a plethora of cinematic illustrations showcasing the absolute chaos that a possible AI uprising could give birth to in our world. But the exaggerated nature of these depictions may have warped our perception of the threat that the development of AI poses, so much so that we are no longer cognizant that these computer programs pose different but very realistic and very serious threats to human existence. The development of artificial intelligence poses a wide variety of threats. Threats like accelerated hacking potential, lack of privacy, AI terrorism, or even an advanced level of AI scamming. Now, I'm not saying that maybe one day a robot or a computer system will rise up and decide to throw off the social balance of our society, or just randomly decide to be racist, or maybe even force me out of my job. Or am I? Sit tight, guys. I'm about to thoroughly educate you on some of the biggest threats that artificial intelligence poses to mankind. One of the biggest threats that AI poses is what a lot of programmers refer to as AI bias, which is basically when the algorithm that was used to build the AI program is corrupted with the creator's own biases. The issue of data bias has been a burning concern in the computer programming and artificial intelligence community for as long as AI existed. And let me tell you why. Artificial intelligence functions mainly on algorithms, which are basically learning mechanisms in a computer software. And since algorithms are built by humans, they can have biases, which would have been introduced into the algorithm either intentionally or inadvertently by those who created it. See, if algorithms are built with bias or the data in the training sets that they are giving to learn from is biased, then inevitably they will produce biased results. One example of this is with the flawed criminal software Compass. Now, Compass, which stands for Correctional Offender Management Profiling for Alternative Sanctions, is an algorithm used in the court systems throughout the United States. This algorithm is used to predict the likelihood of criminals reoffending, and this acts as a guide to use when sentencing criminals. Now, data analysis website ProPublica analyzed the Compass software and concluded that, and I quote, "It is no better than a random, untrained person on the internet." Wow. Very strong and discouraging words. Surely not words persons would want to hear about the very computer system put in place to ensure accurate and unbiased judgments about the fate of actual human beings. The developers of this computer software have denied these claims. No surprise there. But unfortunately for them, the stats tell another grim and distasteful story. A statistical analysis was done on these reports. A statistical analysis that was done on these reports showed that African American offenders, even after committing less severe crimes, had a reoffending risk factor of 45% as opposed to their white counterparts, who had a risk factor of 23%. Now, the main danger with this is, seeing as artificial intelligence is based mainly upon algorithms, we simply cannot predict how biased these algorithms will cause the computer programs to behave. My question to you regarding this argument is, how do we stop humans from corrupting these innocent computer programs with their own personal biases so that we can ensure fair and accurate judgments in these extremely important and possibly life-changing situations? Now on to the main threat, employment. The most common adverse effect people will think of when they hear of the development of artificial intelligence is loss of employment. And guys, we simply cannot ignore this grim and very possible reality. We must question the feasibility of adoption, especially for the older generation in this very possible fourth industrial revolution. We simply cannot ignore the reality that the development of artificial intelligence will inevitably result in a massive dent in the human workforce. Because come on guys, we simply cannot outwork a machine. To really get a perspective of just how dangerous the development of artificial intelligence can be, we're going to talk about what artificial intelligence does for a company. See, because of the nature of algorithms, AI's ability to recognize patterns and learn from and learn from them and be extreme and learn from them will be extremely useful in the working world. For example, they can be used to augment or replace human workers' eyes, brain, ears, and even arms and legs, performing certain jobs. These jobs can include industrial inspection, inventory management, customer service, language translation, crime pattern detection, factory assembly, and weather reporting, just to name a few. Consider all these new replacements in the workforce. Considering all these new replacements in the workforce, we have to ask ourselves, where does this leave humans? I think the only people that will benefit from the development of artificial intelligence are those who can make them and the persons who can afford them. My question to you is, my opponent, how many people will plummet below the already overcrowded poverty line? How many persons will have to be forced out of a job? How many persons will possibly die of starvation before you realize that the persons who are actually responsible for the funding and development of these computer programs don't care about improving society for everyone and are the only ones who will benefit from this development in the long run? In conclusion, and don't get me wrong, guys, I'm not saying AI is all bad, and which is what my whole speech would have implied, because AI simply does what it is programmed to do, which is learn. I'm simply saying we cannot shoot ourselves in the foot with how we handle this fourth industrial revolution and the development of artificial intelligence. There are far too many scenarios in which humans can suffer immensely from the misuse of AI. I'm sorry, but the dangers that the development of artificial intelligence poses are simply far too serious to ignore. And thank you.
We will take the arguments from our opposer.
Ladies and gentlemen, my worthy opponents, distinguished judges, a pleasant afternoon to you all. I am Chevelle Taylor, a second-year student of this noble institution, and my goal here today is to do two things. The first is to trigger mindful optimism towards the AI conversation. Secondly, to effortlessly nullify evidence that has been presented by the opponent. Mindful optimism disentangle us from the fear and fantasy of an AI apocalypse, the total wipe out of humanity. The AI that we use today is exceptionally useful for many tasks. That doesn't mean it is always positive. It is a tool which, if it is used maliciously, or incorrectly, can have a negative consequence. Despite this, it currently seems to be unlikely to become an existential threat to humanity. Many of the experts agree that the AI could be a threat in the wrong hands. According to Dr. George Martin, AI expert from Oregon College, highlights that robots and AI systems do not need to be sentient to be dangerous. They just have to be effective tools in the hands of humans who desire to hurt others. That is the threat of humanity. Have you ever tried to lead a simple conversation with Amazon Alexa or Apple Siri? Exactly, this is not going to go well. However, Alexa as well as Siri are all AI technology. They use natural language processing. Alexa or Siri are not intelligent or self-learning. Consider their brains. They do not have brains. This is nothing else but small applications, like for your Android smartphone or iPhone. Someone has to develop and equip with further commands, questions you can ask, ready answers or actions, and the more skills are activated, the more intelligent Alexa or Siri appears. I find it very difficult to fathom the very thought that the development of this mathematical tool that can be optimized for partially any objective is considered a threat to humanity rather than the creators of AI themselves, who is responsible for the action of their AI. If we're building an AI that is antisocial and has negative effect on society, who is the real threat here, my opponent? AI isn't the threat to humanity. Humanity is the threat to humanity. It is on this very basis that today I stand on, swerving in objection to this motion. Be it resolved, the development of artificial intelligence is a threat to humanity. The motion seems to be blurred to my opponent, but to enlighten the darkness, definition must come in play. Development, defined by the Society of International Development, is a process that creates growth, progress, positive change, or the addition of physical, economic, environmental, social, and demographic components. The purpose of development is a rise in the level and quality of life of the population and creation. I know my opponents will argue vehemently that there are many enormous challenges created by the AI, And some of these challenges are pretty scary outcomes for humanity if left unchecked. But let's put things into perspective for a moment. AI is still a technology that, in spite all the hype around it, is very much in its infancy. This is a technology that most of the time, in spite of all the enormous value it's creating, for us it's quite like it's quite parrot-like in its ability to interpret the world. How many people in the audience right now have a cell phone? That's pretty much all of us. Smartphone you're already using artificial intelligence. AI is in apps and service, and the world has not ended yet. Good news. The reason why the development of artificial intelligence may argue by the opponent and many others as a threat to humanity is because they have chosen to focus on the problem of technology and not the underlying social, political, and environmental challenges that in most cases what led to the limitation or even the threat of humanity. Yes, there's no question that with the AI there's potential, and the reality of sometimes having bias as having built-in limitation in the way these AI are built. But this is a reflection of not an inherited problem with the technology itself. That is a reflection of the diversity problem built in tech industry, which is in and is of itself a reflection of our deeply divided, riddled with social inequality. Yes, there is potential for killer robots, and Russia is already on it, and it might be a problem one day. But that's not the problem again, necessarily because of the AI. That's a problem in our international system. Why is it that nation states are seeking weapons of war to dominate the world? Why is that we have that kind of instability built in the world, in the way the world order is? These are questions that are much harder to solve, and because of that, many policymakers would rather blame it on tech and focus the conversation just on technology, which takes me back to my point. AI is not a threat to humanity, but humanity is a threat to humanity. Secondly, let us pause for a moment to take in the argument that the development of AI poses an existential risk to humanity. And and that threat is that will destroy the life on Earth, to literally wipe it out. This argument warns that the AI will become super intelligent, overpower its human creator to pursue its own unimaginable ends, and to menace life and overtake the planet. But what would need for this to be true possible? AI would need to be intelligent in meaningful sense, meaning it can reason from itself, form its own goals, and pursue those goals according to context. In other words, it will be able to think for itself. The philosopher John Searle refers to this idea that will never be possible. He quotes, an enormous philosophical confusion about the correct interpretation of AI technology. He points out that the consciousness is essential to intelligence, and that without it, people in an advanced system like IBM Deep Blue is not playing chess in the same way as a master like Gary Kasparov. Instead, it is just performing a computation. We know that AI is not conscious and not at risk of becoming so because consciousness is an enduring system in philosophy, neuroscience, and psychology. So basic science is not able to characterize consciousness and where it comes from in people. So why do we think that computer science will be able to replace it? I thank you.
So both arguments are presented. Therefore, each debater gets 2 minutes to prepare their rebuttal. And you have the opportunity to choose any person from the audience to assist you. We will now have the rebuttal. So our first speaker, or affirmative, Zane Watson, will now come.
Alright, so my rebuttal is, predictably my opponent has argued the point that AI is not a threat, and we are actually the threat. But my opponent, you have failed to address, you have failed to appropriately address how the generation will adapt to this possible fourth industrial revolution. Alright, I'm going to help you understand my point. In the future, we will create machines to replace humans in the workforce, which pushes us down the pecking order because we simply cannot outwork a machine. Let's say our job is created for us to operate these machines. I want you guys to remember one of the first points I made, that algorithms are simply learning software. If we continue to operate these machines inevitably, these machines will learn well enough to no longer need or require our assistance. Then what would happen? I can only see humans being employed for a very short time in this fourth industrial revolution if the development of artificial intelligence continues as is. And if there's less and less to do in these jobs that we do manage to keep, then we will be paid less and less. Now, using AI systems, Alexa and Siri as an example, in comparison to what they can become in the future is simply not a wise comparison. You define development in your speech, yet you alluded to the point that AI is in its infancy stage, and the mood stated the development of AI threatens our very existence. So am I to believe that the development of Siri and Alexa will not do likewise? My opponent, I do not think you understand the types of algorithms that are used to develop AI. These are highly intelligent computer software with exponential potential that we simply cannot predict at this point. And why would we place this potential in the hands of world leaders who constantly threaten nuclear wars on less equipped countries?
We overemphasize the importance and the power of AI. I am not saying that the AI is not powerful or detrimental, nor I'm saying that I'm saying it isn't important to understand the technical priorities or the material power of AI. I am saying that the origin of the detriment comes from social, ideological, and essential human causes than technology ones. The point is that humans make the AI racist, violent, and environmental damage. The political and economic of the platform is harmful to many marginalized groups because of the economic model of racial capitalism and the ideologies of patriarchy, and while supremacy is between infancy, if you're in infancy, you're in development. Am I right, my opponent? So that's why I define development as growth. Humans have the right to change, they can develop growth, they can breed and live. Why would you create something that will control humans? We are the supreme beings. So create the artificial intelligence device that we can control. We are in charge. They are not in charge of my employment. I thank you.
We have come to the end of our third phase off, and we want to thank the team, both debaters. Give them another round of applause, please. We will now move into our fourth phase off. So I will now call upon our affirmative for Royal Garden of the 4B, BTPE, Royal, and our opposition against Javon Campbell of 4A, EBT. Give them a round of applause, please. Okay, so our affirmative this for our face off, our fourth face off will be Javon Campbell, and our opposition will be Royal Garden. And they will be debating the moot social media does more harm than good. I will now call upon our affirmative to present his argument.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, judges. My name is Mr. Javon Campbell, and I will be debating about the mood that social media does more harm than good. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, let me define the term social media. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, social media can be defined as a form or forms of electronic communication such as websites for social networking or microblogging. through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal message, and other content, such as videos. While the term harm can be defined as injury, physical or mental, let me rephrase that statement. Harm can be defined as injury, physical or mental. But first, let me get into the meat of the matter. Do not be persuaded by my opponents who will come up and try to filter your minds and tell you about the positives of social media. That social media is a communication strategy. Social media bridges the gap between individuals, and social media is a form of communication. He is just like any other individual who distributes alcohol or sells cigarettes to the individual. It gives you that stamina, it gives you that press, that energy at the beginning, but he does not show that long-term effect. The causes over that period, paralyzing psychological effects which social media has on the individuals, not just teenagers. The emotional distress. Also, social media has the effects of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, cyberbullying can be defined as an electronic posting of mean-spirited messages about a person, such as student, often done anonymously. Cyberbullying is one of the main causes of harm on social media platforms. With racism, according to the EPL, a British network, racism is one of the major causes among Black, Asians, and other groups that are not white. This is done over one of the most famous platforms which the opponent will come up and speak about, social media. This is done on the famous Twitter, the famous Facebook, the famous Instagram. What are these? Social media. What do these harm? Harm psychological damage to an individual. Psychological damages to an individual, mainly teens, if you can see, according to an article published in the Gleaner 2 years ago, a student from one of the most noble institutions of this country posted a video, friendly video. After that, persons taunted, cyberbullied, and destroyed the student's psychological self-esteem, destroyed this student's social background. This student believed that her time was up. She went ahead and she took her life. This will lead to my third point, Mr. Speaker, that social media is one of the leading causes of death. Aren't you seeing this, Mr. Speaker? That social media does more harm than good? Are you deaf? Are you blind? Do you not see the results in front of your face? According to the American Research Center, social media has caused a tremendous 31% of teenage deaths, traumas, self-esteem breakdown, anxiety, depression. Might I not forget depression, which leads back to our main figure of suicidal threats, thoughts. Mr. Speaker, if you do not see that the opposition will try to baffle your minds with words that may sound so soothing, but it's just nothing, Mr. Speaker. Social media, one of the most leading causes of death among teenagers. According to one research done by the American Research Center, social media, if you research on your phones, type up now, And let I not suggest one of the most infamous things written over social media, 13 Ways to Die. Aren't you all familiar with that? That is one of the number one trends, suicidal thoughts of individuals. Mr. Speaker, if you care not to look or shed an eye or a tear, that social media is one of the main causes of harm to individuals, not just teams, but also. I end by stating that social media does cause more harm than danger. I thank you.
To the judges, lecturers, my opponent, and my fellow custodians, pleasant afternoon. The mood for today is that social media does more harm than good. I am going against. Social media is seen generated a great buzz in the world of the internet users upon the arrival and has now become a huge thunder that are heard in every nook and corner of this world. According to 210 and Solomon 2015, I quote, social media are the online means of communication, conveyance, collaboration, and cultivation among interconnected and interdependent networks of people, communities, organizations, enhanced by technological capabilities. Most people are of the opinion that social media has brought down and destroyed every iota of physical human interaction at a very alarming rate. My point that I am arguing on to my affirmative is that social media allows for a faster mode of communication. It gives quick access to information and it increases brand recognition. While not everyone on the internet has a hard time communicating in real life, there is still a good portion of introverts who have an easier time talking online. Social media makes it easier for those people to connect with others and learn social tools that could have been missed. This can be especially helpful for people who live in smaller towns and have a deeper desire to broaden their horizon. Social media is a powerful communication medium with widespread influence over cities as well as remote areas. According to Arbello, as of 2019, statistics show that there are billion social media users all around the world, which is about 42% of the Earth's population. In addition, there are roughly 4.5 billion internet users across the world today. These statistics are proof of the growing dominance of digital media in our daily lives, which generate faster communication. Not accepted. At no other time in the history of the world has it been easier to connect with someone around the world as it is today. To many entrepreneurs, social media is the next big thing. A powerful fact that must be taken advantage of while it's still in the spotlight. Because it appeared quickly, social media has developed a reputation by some for being a passing marketing interest. Every opportunity you have to syndicate your content and to increase one's visibility is valuable. The social media networks are just new channels for your brand, voice, and content. It is of utmost importance because it makes it easier and more familiar for your brand to be recognized for existing customers. Social media is a platform for a brand to maintain consumer relations while also having the opportunity to be found by new levels. According to the Jamaica Observer, in 2020, the radical transformation of our planet since the birth of the internet with social media has been nothing short of phenomenal. Social media makes access to information available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Data has shown that social media allows thousands of persons, if not millions, to have a voice and to spread the information the users feel is relevant and important. The future of social media is uncertain. Although it is safe to assume that it is going nowhere, but in fact, it is always growing with new materials across the globe for beneficial reasons. In today's world, it is used to provide fast information for reliable sources. Thank you.
Thank you, our opponent. So both debaters will now have 2 minutes to prepare their rebuttal. And please remember that you have the opportunity to choose any person from the audience to assist you. So your 2 minutes has ended. And now I will call on the affirmative, Gabon Campbell, to do his rebuttal.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Judges, it seems as though my opponent doesn't get the message. He continues to tell us that social media promotes a bridge. Social media is the communication network. But what he fails to understand is that social media still doesn't fix the point. It extends the point. It harms more. The more connection, the more persons go online,
over 4 billion in which he states, that is double, that is triple my opponent, because of suicidal anxiety and other cyberbullying. So what are you trying to promote? War against these students? What are you trying to do? Promote more harm? Come on, Mr. Speaker. Aren't you seeing what my opponent is trying to promote? He stated an interdependent. He stated that social media gives a voice for cyberbullies, a voice for bullies to stay behind their computers and state who is black, who is white, who is not here from who is there, who fits in from who fits out. Mr. My opponent, would you like if someone for the audience or myself tells you behind a computer screen that you are not fit to be here, how would you feel? How would you feel if you would like me to sit behind my keyboard and state that you are not the one that's supposed to be here and be in charge and to elect me as your governor? My opponent, you do not know the term FOMO, fear out of missing social media, more persons going online, producing more communication images, stating that persons who see you post pictures online, they feel abandoned. Look into yourself, my opponent, and ask yourself, is social media the bridge, or does it destroy the bridge? I thank you.
For opposition, your rebuttal.
My affirmative asks if I am fit. Yes, I train every day, so yes, I am fit. You said that they share content on websites such as videos. Despite concerns connected with privacy, people may easily protect themselves if they carefully think before they upload their material and make their security settings. Emotional distress and psychological effect, suicidal and bullying. The advantage of self-expression outweighs the disadvantage of the invasion of privacy. Social media should not be considered hindrance. You said I must do my research. You are in contradiction. You are mixing up the internet instead of social media. What do you use to find your research to come and challenge me? What medium did you do your practicum last year? What do you use to draw your conclusion? Thank you.
Both arguments are presented. The rebuttals are. I want you to give a round of applause. We will now move to the other round, the fifth phase of for this afternoon, or affirmative for Janoy McIntosh of 2B, BTTB, and opposition against Jabari, Larmon, Okay. Okay, so or affirmative for I apologize for that. So our fifth and final face off for this afternoon will be our affirmative for Karen Salmon. Karen Salmon of and our opposition against Denika Rumble. And they will be debating the Russian athlete should be barred from all major athletic leagues. We'll call on our first speaker, affirmative Karen Salmon.
Mic check. Mic check, mic check. Mic check. Esteemed judges, worthy opponents, members of the audience, good evening. The moot put before the House, Russian athletes should be barred from all major athletic leagues. The Oxford Dictionary defines the word barred as to be blocked from entrance or to deny a person from having access to something, while the Merriam-Webster's Dictionary defines league to be a group of sports teams that regularly plays one another, which is why I am in agreement that access of Russian athletes to major sporting events be prevented. How would you feel regularly facing an opponent whose home country is currently invading your homeland and on a rampage, snatching away the lives of innocent people, making you and your loved ones sad while they are allowed to frolic around on a football field or on a tennis court as if all is well? Well, that is the feeling of Ukrainian athletes, according to the Telegraph, after Russian gymnast and a strong supporter of Vladimir Putin, Ivan Kolyak, sported a pro-war Z symbol while standing beside Ilya Kovtun of Ukraine on the medal podium at a World Cup event last week. Now let me clarify for you. A pro-war Z symbol is a symbol which shows great support of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. My audience, this has caused great international outcry, especially since Kovtun was the gold medal winner and Kolyak refused to apologize by stating that he would commit the act again if he had to. This is indicating the bold nonchalance being displayed by many Russian athletes on the world scene. This focuses my first argument on how Russia's recent attack on Ukraine affects the integrity of sports. What the current war in Ukraine does is to put major sporting organizations such as the International Olympic Committee in a dilemmatic position, as while athletes from Russia and allies Belarus are able to continue in participating in sporting events. Many athletes from Ukraine are prevented from doing so because Russian forces have crept over their borders and attacked them. Correction, they have bombarded and wreaked havoc on their lives. This has totally gone against the IOC's truce, which contributes to peace through sports and to unite the world in peaceful competition beyond all political dispute. Additionally, there has been many calls for peace by athletes, sport officials, and members of the Worldwide Olympic community. My opponent, let me ask, should the IOC and other sporting bodies just ignore the calls for peace in a time of war? I think not. My opponent may try to argue that the athletes are not at fault and that their families will be affected financially, psychologically, if these decisions are made. This is why I am ready to inform you that the Olympic movement recently released a statement acknowledging that it is united in its sense of fairness not to punish athletes for the decisions of their government if they are not actively participating in them. Also stating that they are committed to fair competition for everybody without any discrimination. But there's a big but. The current situation is complex because of the Ukrainians' inability to have sporting events at current due to Russia's unkind behavior. This is assuring my argument that if Russia's decision affects one country from participating, then they should be sanctioned with some similar consequences of that nature. My second argument surrounds the pride and love Russians have for sports and the livelihood they make from sports. Russians participate in almost every sport known to man, doing exceptionally well at them. Their love for sports has seen them host many major tournaments in the past, such as the Winter Olympics, the IAF World Championships, and the FIFA World Cup. Tournaments which are known to bring in great economic reward to a nation. Sports has also brought the people of Russia together on many occasions, carving the psyche of the nation time and time again. I say this to say that if many Russians' happiness heavily surrounds sports, and a statement needs to be sent to have the invasion halted in the name of peace, then barring them from participation in major tournaments will be a cause for any leader to rethink and reassess any rash decisions. This will also bring forth pressure from the people of that nation to their leader. It is a political strategy that is worthwhile. My opponent, you can already see where Russia has been stripped of hosting the UEFA Champions League final in St. Petersburg, and Poland and Sweden refused to play in next month's FIFA World Cup playoff versus Russia. The world is talking up. The world is in agreement with my claims. Even Polish captain Robert Lewandowski tweeted that it is the right decision. He cannot imagine playing a match with the Russian national team in a situation when armed aggression is in Ukraine continues. I know my opponent will stress the psychological and financial effects barring athletes from competing in major tournaments will cause, which is a minority because as we speak, Russian athletes are still competing locally as they are in their right to do so. It is the psychological effects on Ukrainians that should be of great concern. Again, I say this to say, to solve this issue, Russian athletes should be barred from competing in all major tournaments. Thank you.
We will now have our opposition.
My opponent, I see where you are not knowledgeable about the Athletes' Bill of Rights, so let me educate you. The Athletes' Bill of Rights is an instrument, it is an important building block that comprises of all the rights of an athlete for all sports organizations to define their human rights. Honorable judges, my opponent, fellow colleagues, and distinguished guests, a pleasant afternoon to you all. Russian athletes should be barred from all major athletic leagues. To be barred means to be excluded or forbidden. Russian athletes will not be able to participate in major athletic leagues, and I am against this move. Russian athletes should not be barred from the major athletic leagues. Contrary to what others may think, barring Russian athletes may add fuel to the fire. Let's talk about the Athletes' Bill of Rights. Peter Kaufman, the Sporting Society Research Advisor says, the pursuit of sport does not make one immune to the scourge of inequality, injustice, and oppression. The Athlete Bill of Rights sends a powerful message that athletes, like all citizens of the world, deserve basic rights, freedom, and opportunities. The Athletes' Bill of Rights say that every athlete has the right to play whatever and whichever sport he or she chooses, regardless of race, ethnicity, age, gender, sex, disability, religion, and political affiliations. I repeat, and political affiliations. Barring athletes from major athletic leagues is a blatant violation of the athletes' rights and a manipulation of the Olympic Charter and human life value in pursuit of political goals. The Russian athletes and committee are unfairly portrayed as the perpetrators of the current political conflict. The Bill of Rights empowers athletes to advocate for their own rights. We can say then, if athletes are barred, the Bill of Rights is not being observed. I respectfully decline. The Russian athletes are not the policymakers. The last time I checked, Mr. Putin is. They have no control over decisions that are made, and that is Mr. Putin being the autocrat he is. Why should they suffer from not being able to participate? Russian athletes are individuals like everyone else with dreams, courage, and fear if we can agree. Not because they are symbols or potent representatives of our nation engaged as the aggressor in a heinous war, they should not be allowed to play crazy. Quite frankly, it is unfair. Athletes have worked their tails off for numerous years for a chance, for a dream, to play in the world's best league and are now potentially denied the opportunity because what? They were born in Russia? Barring the athletes from the major athletic leagues is injustice. That is simply suppressing the athletes from doing their professional duties as an athlete. Barring them also is depriving them of their income too, being able to provide for their families and their own well-being. For some athletes, this is their way of life. This is what they do. The athletes made no decision to go to Ukraine. My opponent, did the athletes kill anybody? Why should they be a victim of the circumstance? Bear in mind, banning athletes is likely to add to the unfounded feeling of grievance shared by Putin and many in Russia. If Russians believe that their athletes are being treated unfairly, we might have another invasion or war starting somewhere else, adding fuel to the fire, my opponent. Restricting the athletes may also fuel dangerous xenophobia against everyday people of Russian descent. So with all that is happening, you still want to create problems, my opponent. The Russian athletes should not be banned. They are innocent. They are not a part of the decision-making process. Solve the problem. Don't create more. Let them play. I thank
We will now give both debaters 2 minutes. 2 minutes to prepare your rebuttals. And remember, you can ask for assistance in the audience. Your 2 minutes has ended. I will now call on the affirmative to present their rebuttal. Affirmative.
Alright, so my opponent, I would like to ask you a few questions. Can you not see that the world of sport is in a status of outcries? How could you feel comfortable plying your trade, knowing your co-workers are being attacked by your own people? Would you feel safe stepping out to compete each time knowing your opponent may angrily attack you with every look they get at your face? Not that you did them wrong, but your people. When actions are carried out and decisions are made, consequences must always be considered, as ignorance is not an excuse. For every action, there is a reaction. My opponent, you swiftly run from the fact that I was about to acknowledge the ROC, which means the Russian Olympic Committee. This is a committee in which you can compete under the Russian Olympic Committee, but not as Russia, in which you are still able to make an income. Again, I say that they are not able to compete they are not able to compete internationally, but they can compete locally. You said they are not killing anybody. Are we going to wait for athletes to kill athletes? You did not justify President Putin's action. Putin has no considerations for his athletes. You have mentioned the actions, but how would you solve the problem? Do you want to compete with warmonger? Members of the audience, for the actions carried out in Ukraine and in the name of peace, Russian athletes should be barred from participating in major athletic leagues. I thank you.
Thank you. We're ready for the opposition.
My opponent, am I to assume that you are not learning anything although attending a physical education college? This is not the people's choice. Every sport encourages good sportsmanship and fair play. We here at JC Costa learned that these are important aspects of competition. So why my fellow opponent go against what you have learned? Yes, Ukrainians have a right to feel away. But my opponent, the war is not on the playing field. Emotional intelligence should be exercised. IOC, though, you say, if they have proper management skill, would be in a better position to prepare for situations like this. You said that they call for peace, but wouldn't excluding Russian athletes from major athletic leagues call for war? Yes, the decision of the IOC is complex, but it is not Russia's athlete decision. It is the president. My opponent, two wrongs don't make a right. Ukrainians too, even though being attacked, are getting guns and ammunition to fight back. So my opponent, why don't you say exclude both teams? My opponent, with this being said, please withdraw from your course of study because you go against what you have learned here at GC Hospital. I thank you.
Very, very interesting face-offs. Well done to all the debaters, and I ask that we all give them a round of applause. I now invite the judges to come and deliver the results.
say after debate of that quality, that particular, that last debate, what can I say now? All right, we want to thank you all for being here quite late, but we like the fact that you came to support your colleagues, your friends, and we encourage you to come again next week and to invite others to be a part of the audience. All right, we're going to announce the winners for each, or the winner for each face-off. So for face-off number 1, the moot, the view that tertiary education is a path to success is a facade, the judges voted unanimously in favor of the affirmative. That's for the For paper number 2, tertiary education should be free. It is the judge's decision that the affirmative that the winner can be covered. For paper number 4 and 3, the development of artificial intelligence is a threat to humanity. Boy, this one was a very tight one. It was a very difficult one. And both debaters are winners in their own right. And with that said, the winner of that face-off is the opposition. Taylor. Alright, for face-off number 4. Moves social media does more harm than good. Can we be quiet, please? This was another interesting and inviting debate, and I see. But the winner, as decided upon by the judges, goes to the affirmative. We are at the final point. Quite nerve-wracking. Face-off number 5 between Danica Rumble and Karen Salmon. What can I say? What do you think, audience? No, this one was extremely close, and the quality was of a different standard, superior standard, we must say. And after deliberation, and further deliberation, and deliberation again, we decided that the winner is, and the winner is, Danica. I want us all to applaud the debaters. They did so well. And tomorrow, Friday, I should say, will be the big reveal. We will announce those who will move forward to the 3rd round, and unfortunately those who will leave us for the time. So have a good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here.